It is the Newport This Week video podcast series. I'm Bill Bartholomew. Every week we go inside some of the major stories impacting the Quinnic Island. I was going to say Newport, but that's not just Newport in the conversation, the entire island. One of those stories, no doubt, that we've been on the last several weeks. I would encourage everyone to go and take a look at some of the work we've been doing on school regionalization. Adjacent to that and separate from that is just a school conversation in general, and particularly declining enrollments and better serving students by allocation of students to specific buildings. Beth, I guess the best thing to do for anybody who doesn't know you, if you pay attention to Newport politics or schools in general, you know who you are. But for those who don't, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Bill, thanks. Thanks for the time. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about the future of our schools. And for those who don't know me, Beth Cullen, have lived in Newport in this house since 1991, but my family's been in town since the 1880s, maiden name McManus. Have one son who spent some time in Newport Public Schools and is now just graduated from the Naval Academy. So that's pretty much our life right now. I've been focused on my new job, which is as a member of the Newport School Committee. I was elected in November and I started in December. And some of my priorities since getting on the school committee have been academic achievement, improving that, getting kids more focused on their futures, career development opportunities in our area. Some of the highlights, we've done the cell phone ban, which I was a big advocate for. They had talked about it for years, but I was able to get the General Assembly to come down in February. We had a workshop. They got it on their session calendar and it passed. First time. That's so odd and strange to have the General Assembly take an issue and actually get it done in one session. So that was exciting. We saved the NAGTech building, which is the Newport Area Career and Tech Center. Dr. Bob Power and I, the two new members of the school committee, worked really hard to make sure that that building was not demolished because it's in really good shape and there are programs in that building that kids want, and we needed office space. So that was a win-win. So now we're talking about fifth grade. And as you said, Bill, our enrollment is declining rapidly. I had all kinds of data here, but the Pell School can hold 950 kids now that they put the addition on. They have about 680. So there's plenty of room to move the fifth grade, which is about 140 kids this year. It'll be fewer next year. So we're working on that. Parents want it. The superintendent is engaged with it. The principal, Dr. Browner, is engaged in it. He's actually starting this year with the fifth grade still at Thompson on Broadway, preparing them for the curriculum, preparing the teachers. And a little bit of the difference is, as you know, middle school is normally sixth, seventh, and eighth. Fifth grade is technically an elementary grade. So fifth graders are still 10 years old. They're not even adolescents yet. They are thrown in from a nice little elementary school setting. They're thrown into this chaos of puberty and all kinds of challenges at the middle school level. And it really is affecting them. Their self-esteem, their mental health, their academic achievement. So all the studies and all the research I've looked at says keep them in the elementary environment as long as possible so they can be the big man on campus, so they can develop their sense of self, so they can have that connection with the teachers. In the fifth grade, they move them around to different classrooms at Thompson. My son was at Thompson in the fifth grade, and it was a real challenge for him. So that's why I want to do it. And I think we're getting there. Last evening, we had our monthly school committee meeting. We voted to move forward. We've been talking about it for months and months and months, but last night was the first actual vote to move forward. Some of my colleagues were a little apprehensive, so they put an amendment in that says we will form a committee that will report back to the superintendent and us by December to do the logistics, which is fair enough, fair enough. So that's what I've been up to.
That's it. Well, that's an excellent summary. I think the middle school thing is such an important conversation that should be had a lot more. And you look at some districts, I often reference Charahoe, one because I went there, but also it's a regional district that has relatively high enrollment, and the fifth graders are amongst the middle school. But there was some interesting data journalism that came out earlier this year, a website called The Pudding, which is kind of a Gen Z driven new website, but it's very sophisticated. And
Uh-huh.
they did
I'm
this
gonna write that
amazing,
down. Go
yeah,
ahead.
it's an amazing piece of journalism on middle
Uh-huh.
school. And the data journalism that they did and the graphs that they were able to populate showed exactly what you're saying. There's such a dramatic difference between a fifth and never mind eighth grader, but even a sixth grader,
Yeah.
that from so many practical levels, never mind availability of resources in terms of facilities, but just on a very basic educational level,
Hmm.
this is something that not only makes sense, it probably is the right thing to do.
Yeah, in my heart, I know it's the right thing to do. I actually knew it was the right thing to do in 2019. I was sitting in the room when the building committee was being formed for the addition on Pell, because when Pell was finished in 2013, it wasn't big enough. So they had to bond and build another wing. I was sitting in the room and they were talking about the high school and grades. And I just remember, and I was just a citizen, an interested citizen, and I was sitting next to a teacher, a department head. And when they said they were going to continue with the K4 grade allocation at Pell, I thought, why not add a couple million to that small bond? I think the bond for Pell was only like 8 million, and the
Mhm.
bond for the high school was 98 million, which has grown to 130 million. I thought this is our opportunity to put the fifth grade back where it belongs, but they didn't do it.
Mhm.
So now that we have such a decline in our enrollment, it's a no-brainer.
No,
So yeah.
yeah, I think that's it's something that really is absolutely essential. What other creative ideas around this notion of declining enrollment do you see prudent to bring up, even on a hypothetical level, as we kind of are in this zone right now as a community where schools are in flux, declining enrollment in Newport, new facilities opening up. Certainly, the career in tech being saved is a major piece of all of this. But what else pops into your head as just somebody who's very thoughtful in this space?
Well, I like to look ahead and I like to make plans for the future. They may never come to fruition, but I think as an elected official, it's up to me to be a bigger thinker and to push for some, out of the box stuff. And this is not a surprise because I added it to the goals, for the superintendent. We had a meeting where we were setting goals for her. And I said, I think we should really focus on in the next X number of years. I don't have a time frame. Get the fifth grade into Pell. Consider getting the sixth grade into Pell.
Wow.
Again, there's 950 seats in that building now, and our grades are around 100, between 110 and 130 kids per grade. So we're talking 300. I mean, it's doable as the numbers drop. So we have to keep our eye on that. Um, and then perhaps since we have such a luxurious new high school down on Wickham Road that is built for 750 kids, students, I believe we have less than 600 enrolled.
Yep.
So there's space there as well. And out of the box thinking, but wouldn't it be wonderful if we could partition off part of that new structure, that fancy state of the art, and have a seventh and eighth academy where these kids are ramped up. I mean, the numbers, and I did some research this morning, and I've known these numbers. Our proficiency rates are extremely low in math and reading, uh, to the point where it's a head shaker. At Thompson, our English language learners are 14% proficient. 14%,
14,
14,
4.
1-4. In math, 10%.
Come on.
So that to me is a big red flag. And those numbers have been consistent for many years. My husband's Michael is a numbers quant guy, and he does a lot of evaluation of things, and it's really been a flat line. So we need to do a better job of getting these kids really early at Pell ramped up so that when they get to the high school grades, they actually can perform in mathematics and communication skills. They're not doing that right now. And I think that's why we have so many behavioral issues, because kids are thrown into an environment where they're expected to do some pretty high level work and they're not prepared. So It's not a good situation. And I've been talking about this for years. At our elementary school, it's a little bit better. It's an 18% reading proficiency and a 22% math. Still not very high. State averages in English for elementary is 33%, and for math, it's 29%. So we're still pretty low there. So I really want to get the kids pre-K through 8th grade ramped up, excited about learning, understanding the opportunity sets that are ahead of them. We don't talk enough about career awareness with our kids. In fact, the latest SurveyWorks data that came out in the spring was eye-opening to me. Our 6th to 12th graders were asked a question about how frequently do you talk about college and career in your classrooms? You know, how is there a conversation about that? 18 to 20%, that's all said that they have it. I think it was 18 for college and 20 for career. So 80% of our kids are not being encouraged to think about their futures. And they're not being told about the opportunity sets that are available. We have an amazing Newport campus. It's not being well attended. We need to do a much better job there. They need to know about opportunities for skill trades, apprenticeships. There's just a lot that isn't being discussed. So yeah, my plate is full. My colleagues tend to look at me like, oh boy, here she comes. But I've been at this for 30 years as a volunteer in Newport schools, and I just want to make a difference for the kids.
Well, I think you already, and I hope you know that you already have, and you've raised some great issues today that are so important. And again, we have to think progressively and outside of the box when it comes to education. And sometimes that means, saying something that goes against the grain. Oftentimes, those are the moments that really shape the future. Beth Cullen, thanks so much for your time.
Enjoyed it. Thank you, Bill. Bye.